I still remember the moment I realized the money was gone. I was sitting on the edge of my bed, refreshing the app over and over again like a fool. At first, I told myself it was probably a network issue. Maybe the site was down. Maybe too many people were trying to withdraw at once. Maybe support would reply in a few minutes and tell me everything was fine. But deep down, I think I already knew. Because when your stomach drops before your brain catches up, that usually means the truth has already arrived. And the truth was simple. I had just lost my entire savings to a Ponzi scheme. Not gambling. Not crypto volatility. Not a bad business idea. A scam. A fake investment I thought was my chance to finally get ahead. And the part that still embarrasses me? I didn't think I was being reckless. I thought I was being smart. I thought I had found something better than letting my money sit in a bank account doing nothing while inflation quietly ate it alive. I thought I was making a responsible financial move. Instead, I walked my savings straight into a trap. The money wasn't millions. But it wasn't casual money either. It wasn't play money. It wasn't money I could afford to lose. It was my safety net, my emergency fund, my backup plan. It was the money I had built slowly, painfully, in the kind of way only ordinary people understand. A little from salary, a little from side jobs, a little from the times I told myself, not now in shops because I was trying to be disciplined. It was money that had taken months, maybe years, of saying no to myself, skipping things, delaying comfort, trying to be responsible. That's why losing it hurt in a way that's hard to explain. It wasn't just money. It was effort with memory attached to it. I didn't find the scheme through some shady stranger in my DMs. That would have been easier to spot. I heard about it from someone I knew. Someone who looked normal, spoke confidently, and didn't come across like a scammer. That's how these things usually begin. Not with a villain in a dark room, but with someone in your circle saying, "This thing is working." And honestly, at first I ignored it. I've always been suspicious of anything that sounds too good to be true. But then I kept hearing about it. Different people. Same story. Someone had doubled their money. Someone else had already withdrawn profits. Another person was saying they used the returns to pay rent. The more I heard it, the less it sounded like a scam. And the more it started sounding like an opportunity one was being too stubborn to see. This is the part people don't understand when they look at scam victims from the outside. They imagine greed, stupidity, desperation. Sometimes that's part of it. But a lot of the time, it feels far more ordinary than that. I wasn't trying to become a billionaire overnight. I wasn't dreaming about Lamborghinis. I was just tired of doing everything the right way and still feeling like money moved too slowly. You save. You budget. You try to be disciplined. And still life keeps getting more expensive. Your savings sit there doing almost nothing. Meanwhile, every month, prices rise faster than your money grows. So when someone shows up with something that sounds like a shortcut, not a crazy shortcut, just a smarter one, it doesn't feel like greed. It feels like relief. That's what made it dangerous. It didn't feel like I was chasing fantasy. It felt like I was finally finding a way to breathe. The platform looked polished enough to lower my guard. It had a dashboard, account balances, withdrawal buttons, customer support chat, graphs, numbers moving. Everything looked legitimate enough to make doubt feel paranoid. And the promises were clever. Not ridiculous enough to scare me off. Just attractive enough to keep me listening. Steady returns. Low risk. Smart investing. Passive income. They used all the right words. Words designed to make you feel responsible, not reckless. And then came the thing that truly trapped me. Someone I knew had already withdrawn money from it. That was the turning point. Because once you see proof, your brain relaxes. You stop asking, "Is this real?" and start asking, "How much should I put in?" So I started small. Just a test. An amount I could emotionally survive if something went wrong. And then the worst possible thing happened. It worked. A few days later, I logged in and saw profit. Not just numbers on a screen. I requested a withdrawal. And the money actually entered my account. That one moment probably did more damage than any fake advertisement ever could. Because once a scam pays you once, it doesn't feel like a scam anymore. It feels like proof. Like validation. Like all your skepticism was unnecessary. I remember thinking, maybe I almost missed something good because I was too cautious. That thought cost me a lot of money. After that first payout, my relationship with the scheme changed. I stopped treating it like a risk. I started treating it like a tool. Something useful. Something smart people were quietly using while everyone else left money on the table. And that's when the second mistake happened. I put in more. then more. Then I did something I still hate admitting out loud. I moved almost all of my savings into it. Not because someone forced me, not because I lost my mind, but because by that point, I wasn't making a financial decision anymore. I was protecting a story, the story that maybe life was finally about to get easier, the story that maybe all those years of financial stress were about to soften a little, the story that maybe I had finally found something that worked in my favor. That's the real danger of scams. By the time they take your money, they've already sold you a future in your head. And once you start living inside that future, you stop looking at the present clearly. Looking back, there were signs. A lot of them. The explanation of how the money was generated was always slightly vague. Depending on who you asked, it was trading, or agriculture, or crypto, or automated arbitrage. The story kept changing just enough that I should have noticed. Withdrawals sometimes took longer than expected. Support was inconsistent. Questions were often answered with motivational nonsense instead of clarity. People kept sharing screenshots of profits, but nobody could explain the business model in a way that made solid sense. And yet I stayed. Because when people want something to be true, they become incredibly patient with bad explanations. I know that now. At the time, I called it keeping an open mind. What it really was denial. The morning it all fell apart felt strangely normal at first. I opened the app, checked my balance, and requested a withdrawal. Pending. Fine. A few hours later, still pending. I messaged support. No response. I checked the group chat. People were asking questions. At first, the admins were calm. Technical issue. Server upgrade. Please be patient. And if you've ever watched a Ponzi scheme die, you know the script. First, the delays. Then the excuses. Then the silence. Then the group gets locked. Then the website becomes unreliable. Then the people who were so loud when money was coming in disappear. And finally, the truth stops being a suspicion and becomes a fact. I refreshed the app again and again like I could force reality to change. But the money was already gone. People talk about losing money like it's just a number problem. It's not. Not when you earned it slowly. Not when it represented safety. Not when you know exactly what it cost you to save it. I remember opening my calculator and adding up every deposit I had made. Every transfer. Every top-up. Every time I told myself, it'll be worth it. The total made me feel physically sick. And then the thought started. What bills could that money have covered? What emergency could it have protected me from? Why didn't I stop after the first warning sign? Why did I trust something I didn't fully understand? How do I even explain this to people without sounding stupid? That's the part nobody tells you. After a scam, you don't just lose money. You lose your confidence in your own judgment. And that can be harder to rebuild than the bank balance. For a while, I didn't even want to talk about it. Because losing money to a Ponzi scheme doesn't just hurt financially. It humiliates you. It makes you feel like you failed some obvious intelligence test. Like everyone else would have seen what you missed. So you replay the whole thing in your head like a punishment. That conversation. That first deposit. That fake dashboard. That one withdrawal that made you trust it. You keep revisiting the same moments, hoping you'll find the exact second where you could have saved yourself. And maybe that's why these scams keep spreading. Because the people who fall for them are often too ashamed to speak loudly afterward. Which means the next victims don't hear the warning in time. Looking back, I don't think the scheme was really selling returns. Not primarily. It was selling relief. Relief from slow progress. Relief from the frustration of watching your money grow too slowly. Relief from the fear that life was getting more expensive faster than you could keep up. It sold the feeling that maybe you didn't have to struggle for so long. And that's why Ponzi schemes keep working. They don't just prey on greed. They prey on exhaustion, on hope, on the quiet desperation of people who are trying to do the right thing, but feel like the right thing is too slow. That's why intelligent people fall for them. Because the scam doesn't begin as a scam in your mind. It begins as a solution. Losing that money changed how I think about investing forever. Now, when something promises fast, easy, consistent returns, I don't feel excited. I feel suspicious. If I can't clearly explain how the money is being made, I walk away. If the returns sound too smooth, I walk away. If the pitch relies more on urgency, screenshots, and emotional pressure than transparency, I walk away. And maybe the hardest lesson of all was this. Just because something pays out at the beginning doesn't mean it's real. Sometimes the first payout is not proof. Sometimes it's bait. I wish I could tell you this story ends with me recovering all the money. It doesn't. That money is gone. What I got back instead was a lesson I would have preferred to learn much cheaper. Real wealth is usually boring. It grows slower than scams. It looks less exciting. It gives you fewer screenshots to brag about. But it has one massive advantage. It's real. And if you ever find yourself being offered an investment that feels like a shortcut to escape years of financial pressure, pause. Because sometimes the most expensive sentence in personal finances, I think I've finally found an easier way. If this story made you think differently about money, scams, or investing, subscribe to Pete Finance. This channel is about the psychology, mistakes, stories, and money lessons people usually learn too late. And if you've ever been close to an investment scam or survived one, drop your story in the comments. Someone else might need to hear it before it's too late.